Okay, so as Tracy said, my name is Rochelle Simpson and I'm the registered manager for the Merton Shared Lives scheme. I know that not all of you know what Shared Lives is or what we can offer in Merton, and I recently sent round a survey which I know some of you were able to answer quite well because you did know what Shared Lives was, but for those of you who didn't know what it was, obviously the survey wasn't too helpful for you, or you weren't able to sorry, the lights are going off in here, were able to answer fully. So hopefully this can answer a lot of your questions today. And I was explaining to Tracy that I am going to resend the survey out once I've done this presentation to see if it alters the responses slightly once you know a bit more information about Shared Lives. So I'm just going to share my screen. It's not PowerPoint slides, but it's the computer version of our information booklet, which again I can also share once we've finished this meeting. And as Tracy said, any questions that I'm unable to answer today, I can include those answers in the email with this information. So we are Merton Shared Lives. As I said, we've recently had a good inspection by a CQC across the board, across all 5 outcomes. Um, Shared Lives is a national scheme that offers a unique community-based model of care and support where Shared Lives carers open their homes to vulnerable adults in need of support either on a long-term basis or as a respite overnight arrangement. So essentially not the same in any way, but in terms of the format and the setup, not dissimilar to foster care. It's for carers, it's for individuals in the community who have a health and social care background. We have a lot of ex-nurses, ex-carers, or people that have cared for family members who have a spare room and want to open up their home to individuals who are 18 plus. We currently have 52 approved bed spaces within the scheme, and our scheme is broken down into 2 different types of accommodation. So on site, which is the traditional Shared Lives, where a carer opens up their home, their personal home where they also reside, to up to 3 service users. But we also have a step down service within our scheme where a carer owns or rents a second home. The carer doesn't live there, but the carer provides all the support there, and that's up to 3 times a day. So it would be for individuals who are safe to stay at home at night. We have people that come in just as an off-site. They don't have to start off in an on-site. And we also have people that come in on an on-site, gain some independent skills and step down to an off-site. Sorry, these lights are going off in here. And so sorry, one second. Sorry. So yeah, and it can be quite flexible as well. We have individuals that come in and on off-site, and their support is built up either with agency or mascot or reablement, or family members supporting. So it's a really flexible service. Currently, we have myself and 2 full-time Shared Lives officers and a full-time Shared Lives coordinator. As I said, the scheme is for 18 and over, and for individuals with a learning disability, autism, mental health condition, sensory impairment, or physical health issue. We also recently opened up the scheme to individuals who are care leavers and have kind of reached the age of 18 and need to move on, but aren't quite ready to live independently. So in terms of our Shared Lives carers, some of them live alone, some of them are partners, some of them have families, grandchildren visiting, some don't, some have a day job as well, depending if it can be balanced with their service users. And some are obviously full-time Shared Lives carers, and they can support individuals with day-to-day tasks, which are inclusive of managing their finances, cooking and cleaning, meeting personal care needs, managing medication, completing forms and understanding letters, learning new skills, attending their activities, finding activities. And we have a very extensive process for people to become Shared Lives carers. So not dissimilar to foster care. It's not just you apply and have a one-to-one interview. It's a 3 to 6 month process where they have to fill in an application form, have DBS checks carried out. We have references from previous and current employment, personal references. We even contact their mortgage company to make sure they're up to date with that, so that there's no risk of them falling behind on the mortgage and therefore that individual becoming homeless. We speak to environmental health to make sure there's been no issues in the neighbourhood, all of those things to make sure that they meet the requirements. And then over the 3 to 6 month period, we will then get to know the individual. So we have 25 outcomes that they have to meet, and we will gather information from them over those 3 to 6 months to see how they meet those outcomes, and if they don't, what training we need to put them on to ensure that they do meet those outcomes. We work closely with the environmental health team, who does a check prior to any carer becoming a carer to make sure that their home is in line with the Housing Act 2004. So a lot of our carers have interlinked fire systems. They have to make sure that their doors are fire safe and everything. And then we do annual reviews to check up on that. And then once it's all finished, the assessment process, the officer who was assigned to them to assess them has to then take them to a panel, which the head of housing sits on, care managers from different teams. So Habib, the new learning disability manager, sits on it, mental health manager, all the other teams managers. We have an ex-service user on there, an ex-carer, so that we can all come to a decision as to whether they would be a suitable carer. So as I said before, we have a good inspection through CQC, so we are regularly monitored by them, and we're also part of our membership body, which is Shared Lives Plus, who gives us all our advice and guidance. So if you or your family member is interested in Shared Lives, the referral process, it always has to come from a care manager. So if they have a social worker or a care management team, so in this case would be the learning disabilities team, the referral has to come via them. And that's because sorry, I'm just going to move somewhere so that the light stays on. And that's because the individual does have to be assessed as obviously needing that placement, and those assessments take place prior to coming to our scheme. Once we receive the referral, we follow a matching process. So we have multiple carers obviously in our scheme. Based on the vacancies, we'll look at whether that individual needs an on-site or an off-site, whether it's long-term or short-term, whether there's religious needs that we try and match. We look at the other service users in the placement, because obviously if they have, for example, 2 other really high need service users in there, to put a third one in probably would mean that the carer wouldn't manage all their needs appropriately. And their interests, their mobility needs, if they need ground floor. So that's a really important part of making that placement work. Obviously, if we don't have an appropriate placement, they can be added to a waiting list. And if there is a match found, then we would do an induction process. So for some individuals, it's enough just to go around and see the property, meet once, they're kind of happy to move in. For others, they want a longer process of maybe going around for a cup of tea, maybe spending a day there just to see if that's really the person that they want to stay with. Our Shared Lives carers also have a profile so that individuals can look at their interests and see a picture of them and see a picture of the accommodation to kind of put a face to a name and everything. If it is agreed, then we have a sign-up process. Sorry, one second. So we'd have a sign-up process, and the individual can invite anybody that they want there. We have contracts for the placement. We do a support plan, which is person-centered. We do a risk assessment. We do a personal emergency evacuation plan and a hospital passport. Sometimes it won't all be in one sitting. If the individual finds that gives them anxiety, or they can't manage a long meeting like that, so we would work with the friends and family to complete those documents at another time. If it's a long-term placement, that placement will be reviewed after 28 days. So it's not that, sign on the dotted line and that's it. It would be reviewed after 28 days. If there's any concerns or issues, that would be raised during the 28-day review or prior, obviously, if they're much bigger issues. And if all are in agreement that it's going well, then we would the placement would continue, and it would continue to be reviewed annually, again, unless there's issues, in which a review can be called at any time. If for the kind of lower need individuals, there is an option to move on from Shared Lives if they reach that level of independence that they're striving for. There's an independent accommodation panel, and the care management team would have to present them there if they did reach that level. That's not going to be for everyone, and in that case we have no limit of time spent in shared lives. So again, very flexible to the individual's needs. So costings, there's four different costings within shared lives. One is the support package. That's based on the individual's needs. So if it's respite, it's a nightly fee and is inclusive of everything, support, rent, and food. If it's a long-term placement, the support package will be broken down separately into support, rent, service charge, and food. The support package, again, will be dependent on individuals' needs. So it could range anywhere from 200 to 500 a week. Rent is, for a long-term placement, is £201.37 a week. That's within the LHA. And so if your family member is on PIP or DLA, they would get that full amount via UC or housing benefit. There's a service charge of £8 a week, which helps the carer towards bills and everything. And then food is separate. So if the individual is able to go shopping and prepare their own food, or wants to partake in the shopping and prepare their own food, then they can obviously purchase their own, whether that be with help through CFA or a family member looking after money. If they're completely unable to do so, then you can just pay a fee to the carer of £80 a week, and that would include all their meals, and the carer would do the shopping and provide all the meals that they like. So, and again, that would be agreed prior to any placement going ahead. So these are just common questions and answers for you. So individuals have their own room. Yes, they do. They'll have basic furnishings such as a bed and somewhere to store their clothes. They can decorate their room if they wish and bring personal items, and then everything else is shared. They can have visitors. We normally say up to about 10 p.m. But obviously, again, that's flexible depending on the carer. Unfortunately, visitors cannot stay overnight because for insurance purposes, but individuals can go and stay with friends and family. If they're in a long-term placement, they want to go and stay out at the weekend, then that's fine as long as they let their carer know, or the family lets the carer know. House rules, there are house rules, individual carers' house rules, would be dependent. Some are fine with smoking, some aren't. For example, in the garden, some are happy for certain decorations to be done in the bedroom, some aren't, like holes in the walls and stuff like that. So what if the placement ends? So there are different reasons why a placement might end. The individual, the shared lives carer or care management team may decide that it should. So if it's clear within those 28 days that the carer is not able to meet that individual's needs, it might end for that reason. It might be positive reasons and they're ready to move on independently. It may be that initially when they were placed there, the carer was able to meet their needs, but as they grow older and their needs increase, that the carer is then not able to meet the needs. The carer's circumstances may change. They need to sell the house, or they don't want to be a carer anymore. And so there's multiple reasons, and it's all stipulated in the contract, the notice period for those different reasons, and what would happen in those circumstances. And if the individual doesn't like the placement and wants to leave, again, that's obviously completely their right to do so. We do require 28 days notice for that. However, if they don't feel that they can remain in the property for the 28 days notice, of course they're free to leave prior to that, but the costings would just continue up till the 28 days notice has expired. So we're just in the process of finishing this leaflet, so that's why it's kind of abruptly ended there, but that's it kind of in a nutshell. In terms of respite, which I know out of, if you were going to use shared lives, that might be something you're most interested in. Unfortunately, we don't pay carers a retainer fee, and so we do have some carers who are specifically there for respite, and so every time you need respite, they hopefully would be available. But then we do have other carers that take respite and or long term, so you might use them for a respite 1 year, then the following year that carer's then gone and taken a long-term placement. The carers are self-employed, and so I can't stipulate how they wish to manage their referrals, and again, because we don't pay a retainer fee, I can't stipulate what they do, that what they need to do to kind of ensure an income as well as be carers. And so that can be an issue. If, for example, there was a carer that you ended up really liking and you wanted your family member to have a break, and you knew that, for example, there was 4 weeks every year that you go away at the same time every year, then if we know that in advance, we can work around that. And so that's Shared Lives currently in a nutshell. Um, Going forward, as I kind of touched in the survey, we are hoping to grow Shared Lives for learning disability and autism. I have noted that, or I'm aware that our scheme currently does not have a lot of adapted properties or properties that would suit mobility issues. If they need a wet room or bigger bathrooms, and so that is something that in our recruitment documentation that I am specifically asking for. And I'm also aware that whilst we do have some carers that are experienced and aware of challenging behaviour when it comes to learning disability and autism, they're not across the board. And so if those carers aren't available, then that's obviously not helpful to you in that situation. So again, in our recruitment documentation, I've specifically asked people that have a background with that and would be comfortable supporting someone with challenging behaviour or a learning disability autism background. So that was really helpful as well with your feedback in the survey, because I know a lot of you said that. The social workers have also said that to us. We're trying to be creative with our recruitment. So obviously if there's anyone you know or any ideas that you have of where it might be useful for me to try and recruit, then please let me know. Because traditionally Shared Lives is in the UK is mainly used for people with learning disability and autism. Merton Shared Lives is quite unique in the sense that majority of our service users are mental health. That's not due to the carers or anything. It's just that I think actually Merton does have a bit of a bigger offer of respite and long-term accommodation than other boroughs. And so it's been met with those support services. And so Shared Lives hasn't needed to be tapped into prior to this. And then mental health kind of came in and was like, we'll use you then. But traditionally, again, across the UK, that is what Shared Lives is for, is for learning disability and autism. So it's a model that has proven to work for service users with those needs. But again, the matching is a big part, and me making sure that we have the accommodation that you guys would find useful for breaks, or whether you're looking for a long-term option if if any of you are getting older and it's something that you're looking at for your family member, then I need to make sure that all the needs are there for that individual. So I am aware of that, and I hope that we can get some good carers in that also maybe have a ground floor bedroom and a ground floor bathroom as well, that would mean that that individual has everything that they need in one place. But yeah, we have some really successful stories in Shared Lives, and it's not. I know that there have been anxieties in the past. Obviously, it's a family home, and why would they go from one family home to another family home? And I get that. But it's meant to be obviously more of a person-centered model, and the family can still be as involved as they want. We have a service user at the moment from the learning disability team. She's with in Shared Lives kind of Monday to Friday, and then goes home for the weekends, or we'll go down round for dinner in the evenings, or the family will pop over. So it's not it's still very inclusive of everyone that the service user wants involved. And we like to work with the families. That we often have service users specifically through mental health that don't have that family support, and you can really see the difference between those service users and their ability to talk to others and confidence and everything, and them getting the best care. So we would encourage that. So it's not something that we'd want to kind of take over from what anyone you guys have been doing for years, and that's why it's important during the sign up that with the support plan that family members would be present, so we really understand how to meet the needs of that individual. So yeah, that is it in a nutshell. Obviously, if any of you have any questions, I might have forgotten something, but I'm happy to answer.
I'm just going to pause the recording, Michelle.
Okay.
Who is who is using it for respite, which was also one of our ambitions. So we want to really think with yourselves and other people about how we can make this an attractive option to people with a learning disability, and have it as part of our sort of structure of places that people can live, basically. So we know that those people that are in shared lives accommodation have had good success and often have lived there for a long, long time. We also know that it won't be suitable for everybody with a learning disability and autism. We know that it won't fit. We know sometimes it might feel a bit threatening to families themselves to have people join someone else's home or someone else's family as well. So we know that some people may not like the idea. But we think there is something to offer here. And so our ambition is to make sure that we always consider shared lives when we are looking for accommodation for somebody. Mainly this will be people that don't have the most complex needs. Though we have had some success with people with quite a level of physical disability as well as learning disability. The placements don't have to be in the borough. And I'm not sure if Rochelle mentioned this, but we've had some success in turning placements for younger people into shared lives placements where they've taken what is called a staying put arrangement with foster carers. And we think this may be very suitable, particularly for young people in transition. So we're trying to target this with the staff within the learning disability team, within the transition team as well, and make sure that people are talking to families about this as a real option. We know that there are certain requirements physically in a home for shared lives to be open to people. So quite often what's on offer is accommodation that's upstairs, and sometimes people can't actually do stairs, so they need downstairs accommodation. And we usually need people to be living on site, whereas quite a lot of the shared lives carers have accommodation that's slightly off site, and it will be like floating support. They will go in once, twice a day to check someone is okay. So we know that predominantly we need something a little bit more robust for the people that we work with. So that's in a nutshell. I'm sure Rochelle has talked to you about the survey that's been done with staff. And we're trying to just make sure that we make this not only a real option, but something that people really understand. Obviously, we have good respite arrangements, but again, that doesn't suit everybody. So we need that to be really considered for people. Does that give some understanding to people of what we're doing?
Yes, I think so, Jill. I'm just going to pause the recording again, and people can ask you any questions. Just bear with me a moment.